Hello there and welcome to this short video. I was inspired to sort of create around leadership values. So in this presentation, I want to talk to you just about a couple of quick examples on how you think about it. And probably this is a really broad way of thinking about it, like thinking about it from the biggest possible way. So I'm not going to get into religion. I'm not going to get into ethics necessarily. I'll have another presentation on that. But in this one, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about values and why values are important. This model of leadership is not even really a model of leadership. It's a bunch of what I would call principles of leadership values. I like this sort of as a way to help people into the world of leadership and to begin to think about what the process is going to be like. So in this, you'll see there are 5 steps. The first, let's go through them each, and then I'll show you some examples of people from history who've done it quite well. The first one is modeling the way. Unless you're showing people the right way to conduct themselves and how to behave, then you can't consider yourself a leader. This is not just in terms of how you present yourself to boards or how you present yourself to employees or how you present yourself to groups of people. It's also about the way in which you carry yourself when you're leading a team. Now, if you make all the decisions, then why do you have a team? Okay, so think about that. If you're making all the decisions, why do you have a team? The team is supposed to be there to assist, to provide feedback, and also to be collaborators that you work with to help you make the decisions. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we put so much pressure on one person and we pay them ridiculous amounts of money to make these decisions. And really, who does that these days? So an effective leader is an enabler. We'll get to that in a moment, but they also model the right forms of behavior, how to conduct themselves, how to communicate effectively, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with uncertainty and things like that. Steve Jobs said it this way, number 2, that somebody has to be the keeper and the reiterator of the vision. The keeper and the reiterator of the vision. What is the vision? Where are we going? People look towards leaders for that vision, and that's not necessarily senior leaders. It could be anyone in any department or any area or in any business that's decided that this is the way we're going to go and people are following them. Leadership doesn't have the same criteria as other things like management or management processes and things like that. So if people do not have a shared vision and they don't understand the direction where things are going in, they become uncertain. And uncertainty leads to ambivalence and ambiguity, and that leads to people not being inspired to follow a shared vision. There are many different ways in which you can do this. There's many different processes that you can go through, and I'll have other videos on this coming up shortly about the power of vision and how vision works. So this is more of a practical channel. I'm not going to get into the deep philosophies of those things, but this is just a place where I can share some practical things and maybe give you a bit of an academic spin on it as well. The third part of this values alignment piece is around challenging the process. Leadership begins with asking questions. So there's a scholar called Keith Grint who brought out he's got a number of books and papers, but the idea that really stuck with me was he said this: good leaders ask questions when they don't know what to do. So when something's not working, the one thing you don't want to do as a leader is admit that it is working or try and cover it up. You don't want to do that. You want to admit that it's not working and begin to think about ways that you can build a team or perhaps ways that you can construct a process to tackle it. If you just simply keep covering up the mistakes and you're a willing participant in this, then you are part of the problem. And unfortunately, you're not really demonstrating leadership values. So the 3 before, showing people the way or modeling the way, inspiring and keeping and reiterating a vision, and then challenging the process. If the process worked or is working and you're challenging it to be deceptive or unethical, that's a different story. But normally a leader will challenge some kind of process, and leaders in history, people like Mother Teresa, perhaps Gandhi, perhaps people like that, who very controversial, divided people, sure enough, but also had some kind of understanding of what was wrong with the process, and they challenged it and said things need to change. Now here's the hardest part of leadership, other than modeling the way. This one I find particularly difficult, It's enabling others to act. Good leadership means good followers, and good followers can also be good leaders. And I think, and we weren't all leaders at the start, and there's a whole debate we can get into, which I'll talk about later on, are leaders born or made? But when we enable others to act, when we bring them the ability to, when we enable them, and I'll never forget this actually, we give them the right to succeed. At the start of this year, the end of last year, whoops, God, the time's gone. I went down to Sydney and I interviewed a CEO. And when I was talking to him, it was a big operation. And when I was talking to him, I thought, I asked him what his role was. And he said, I'm a CEO, I'm the enabler. I sit here and I help the systems work and help people work together to make the business operate. And that's exactly what a good leader should do. They should build a team, trust that team to deliver, but also keep one eye on the strategic view. And a common metaphor you'll hear in this space is that the CEO or the leadership team or anyone who it is who is a leader, they have to have an eye on the process and where it's going. So perhaps you're up on the balcony watching the dance floor, if you've heard that metaphor before. But digging deeper than that, you have to have the courage to enable others to take responsibility. If you try and do it all and be it all to everyone, then you can never turn around and say you were part of leading anything. You were just directing and controlling. The last, and probably one of the most important tasks of a leader, is to celebrate small wins and encourage the heart along the way. By encouraging the heart, these authors are talking about celebrating small wins and bringing encouragement to people as the process begins to unfold. People get discouraged when they don't see change immediately, and there's a lot of research to suggest that change happens over time. And as a leader, you shouldn't be too worried if you start something and everyone's against you in the beginning. Your job, remember, is to reiterate the vision, to challenge the process, enable people to act, and model the way. Part of that is to encourage people to continue in the light of adversity and ambiguity. When things aren't going well, what do you say to them? You say things like, cheer up? No. What you say to them is, this is where we're going. What we're going through at the moment is perfectly normal, unless the plane's crashing, of course, if you've watched those movies. There's no reason to panic. There is a time for panic and frankness in conversations when things aren't going well. And there are times in organizations and in life when things don't go well, like the organization I work for at the moment, the university sector in general, is in the toilet as the time of this recording in 2024. And our leaders are telling us things of various qualities and they're saying different things. I won't get into that, but I would like someone there to say, it's going to be all right. We're going to get through this. We're going to work it out. Now, some of you are going to lose your jobs. This is what's going to happen. Okay. Now that's not encouraging, but it's the truth. It's modeling the way, but it's also letting people know that we're working on it. And we're trying to find a solution. It doesn't always work. And there's always going to be people that are against the process. But if you keep that encouragement up, and you keep celebrating those small wins, you'll see over time people will generally begin to get on board with the vision. Here's a couple of quick examples before I finish up this video. Steve Jobs said this: have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. As a leader, that's what, if you feel like something needs to change, then you have to invest in it. You have to model the way. You have to show people that you're doing it. And Steve Jobs was one of those stubborn, perhaps autocratic style of leaders that was able to do this. I'm not advocating that because that's an old way of doing things. But if you focus on the work that you're doing and you focus on the outcome that it's going to produce and you believe that it's worth it, then have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. Keep going, keep following that path, and then encourage other people to follow you when you start to see the results and fruits of your labor. Ricardo Semler is another example. This is just a recommendation. I try to recommend a book every time I speak. This is one of those books. He led a company through a massive transformation, and he changed the way that their systems operated. For example, he put managers in a position where they were voted in or voted out, developed by their employees. He enabled small business entrepreneurship inside the company, and he saw his company, Semco, through a couple of recessions. There's some really good leadership lessons in there, but for me, it was the vision. He had a vision for what he wanted the company to be, and he stuck with it, and he encouraged people to follow him even when it didn't look like it was going well. Very good example of encouraging the heart in this book. Worth a read. Anita Roddick was a controversial person in her life. And if you've ever read one of her books, you know that they can be a little bit long-winded and preachy. But I have absolute respect for this person because of the way that she carried herself and believed in what she did. So when you saw her acting in public, not always, but most of the time, you knew what she was doing and you could follow it through and you could see, oh, this person strongly believes in this and they're going to keep acting in this way. The quote here is, "A vision is something you see and others don't. Some people would say that's a pocket definition of lunacy, but it also defines the entrepreneurial spirit. In a weird kind of way, it also defines leadership." So if this is you and you've gotten this far in the video and you're watching this, I would ask you to consider deeply, what kind of vision are you bringing into the world as a leader? Now, you don't have to wait until you're an executive. God forbid. You don't have to wait until then. You can decide right now, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to lead my small group. I'm going to lead this, whatever it is, because I have a vision for what this could be. As you begin to share that vision with people, they'll call you a lunatic. They'll call you crazy. They'll be against you. But when they see you, going in that direction, challenging the process and modeling the way, people will follow you and pick up the vision and help you to bring it to pass. That's the whole thing about leadership. It's not management. There's a big difference between the two. Big difference. Management is about process control. Leadership is about asking challenging questions and challenging the process, bringing a vision into reality. It doesn't always work, but what would you rather have? Nothing? Or would you rather have something that's better than what we currently have, which might suck very hard? All right, well, if you've got something out of this video, give it a like and write a comment or a question. I try to answer the questions. I don't get that many of them, but if you have a question, let me know. If not, then I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.